So, good evening everyone. This is a popular question I get a lot of emails about, is backing up Lightroom and your images, because they are two different actions. When we back up our catalogue, that is all that we are backing up. We are backing up the actions and the data within Lightroom Classic. We are not backing up our images. That is totally different action, and I can show you tonight a way of backing up some images within Classic, and that is my workflow, as in I've devised it, and that will be the second half of this half hour together. So I'm currently running Lightroom Classic 14.4, the new version, so if you haven't updated yet, there might be a slight differentiation in what you see. But let's just share the screen. Okay, so let me go through the settings first. So I'm on a Mac, as I say, I'm running 13.4, I think it is. And let's go to Lightroom Classic. It will be under File on the PC, and we go to Catalog Settings. Now, under the first tab, which is General, it will show you the catalog that you're using, the name of the catalog, the date it was created, when it was last packed up, and the size of the catalog. And if you want to see the catalog itself, the actual file within your Explorer or your Finder, you can just click on the show button and it'll pop up a Finder in my case, and this is the catalog, and it's the file that's in blue. It's LRCat. So let's just come out of that. Now down below we've got a drop down menu, and this is the frequency, the schedule of how many times we back up our catalogue. Never once a month, once a week, once a day, every time you exit Lightroom, and the next time we exit Lightroom. Now, if you're a heavy user like I am, I jump in and out of Lightroom Classic every single day, probably 3 or 4 times a day for half an hour at a time. I have this on every time I exit Classic. I want to back up, I want to make a copy of those adjustments that I've made in my catalogue. The reason why is, what happens if my hard drive fails? All that work that I've done in the last day or so, I've lost because I haven't backed up my catalogue. But if you're just a user once a week, twice a week, something like that, a hobbyist, backing up your catalogue once a week is more than adequate. So this one here that's ticked, that's in blue, this selection, is once a week when I exit Classic. But for this time, I'm going to say, because I'm going to force it, the next time I exit Classic. So the next time I exit Classic, it's going to ask me to back up. Now you can put sequencing of numbers down here while we're here in catalog settings, and this is when you import photos. So it will start with the sequence and you're importing from the number 1. That's the normal setting, that is. So that's your catalog settings. Now there are other things here which while I'm here I'll briefly show you. Previews. This is a preview of an image, and you can set the size, and auto it'll set it to the size of your screen. The quality of it's high, and when you import you can automatically create a one-to-one preview. So that's like having a JPEG file on top of your RAW file. It's not a JPEG file, but when you go through your images, so you're rendering through your images, it's immediately snapping to the screen, so you're not waiting for the preview to be built. Now you don't need to keep one-to-one previews. and this is where you can discard them. So let's say you import them, Classic automatically generates the one-to-one preview, and then you're not really working on that group of images anymore. You just want to store them. Well, after 30 days, it will disregard the one-to-one previews, and it will go back to the standard previews, which you can select the size if you wish. I'm on a 5K monitor, that's why I've got the auto 5K at the top there. So that's what that little bullet point is. You can keep them forever, but you'll have a lot of one-to-one previews, and that will take up a lot of disk space. But if you've got an 8 terabyte drive or more, then that's immaterial. So 30 days. And then we've got metadata, so we can ask it for suggestions, we can treat different files in different ways, so you can stack JPEGs and RAW files together, for example. If you're using third-party apps, this tick box is relevant for you. So if you use a mixture of Lightroom and Lightroom Classic, if you tick this, it'll write any changes into a sidecar file called XMP. So this is quite handy. So if you edit something quickly in Lightroom, Classic will pick up the changes, and that's what this little icon is up here. This file's been edited outside of Classic, and it's telling me what do I want to do. So if I click on it, I can overwrite it, or I can import them. So I can import the settings that I did outside of Classics by clicking there, and that's now updated that file with the adjustments. Could be metadata, could be cropping or anything like that to the file, and it's now brought that back into Classic. So that's what that's for. This little tick box here, really, really important. Look up addresses. So if you are using some form of GPS module, it will look up from the GPS coordinates the physical address and assign that in the metadata, and whether you want to export that. Face detection, this box here, it'll basically, every time you import images, it'll look for faces, and it'll do that automatically. So that's catalog settings. So let's have a look at exporting. So I'm going to quit Classic, and it'll come up with this pop-up dialog. Now you can, this is your default where the drop down was before, where when the schedule you create your backup. So it was once a week. So you remember I changed it from once a week to next time I exit, and this is now telling me it's going back to once a week. So that's what your default is. Now the next box underneath, backup folder, this is really important. Where you put your backup. Okay, so you go and press choose, and you go and put it on a drive somewhere. Could be a network drive, it could be your desktop and you move it, could be on a cloud drive, on a folder within Dropbox or something like that. You do not leave it, I'll say that again, you do not leave it on the same drive that your catalog is running on. Why? Because when that drive fails, because it will fail, it's guaranteed to fail, I just can't tell you when, your backup and your working catalog are on the same drive. So you've lost your backup and you've lost your working data. So this is the backup folder. Press click, then choose, and you go and find a location wherever it is, and it can be a remote location, it can be a cloud storage, it can be a second drive, it can be a USB drive, it can be an SD card. You can put it onto your desktop and then move that file later if you wish, just not on your, don't put it next to your working catalog. So that, I know I'm going back over it, but that is really, really important. The next two boxes are tick boxes for testing integrity. Always have it on. Classic will check everything and optimize. That basically puts everything in the right order. So this is quite a small catalog, so I'll just hit backup. It'll go through and it'll run the backup, and it'll do this quite quickly for this. This is I think only about 80 megabytes, this catalog. This is my training catalog of about 930 images. and nearly there. There we go. And it's just shutting down a plugin that I run. That's the backup done. So that's quite quick. Now on my main working catalogue, that takes about 15 minutes because I've got over 500,000 images. Now, a lot of people get confused. These are my catalogue files. These are what I need to run this catalogue. But you do not need to back up all these files. This is the sync data, this is the smart previews, these are previews, these are helper. You do not need those, and I'll explain why in a second. So if I go to my backup location, there is today's backup, there is the compressed file, the zip file that I did, and there's the date and time of when I've done it. I double click on it to uncompress it. I've only got 2 files in there, and that's all you need is those 2 files. And all you do is you double click on this file and it'll run Lightroom Classic. But what you'll have to do, if I go back to Classic, what you'll have to do is you'll have to rebuild all your previews. And how you do that, you go to your top level, or if you've got a lot of files, these will all be rendering. So you saw this was very quick because these are high-res previews. You will find you'll get one, then the next one, the next one, and the next one, next one, and it will go through and they'll start appearing. So what you have to do is you have to Command or Control A to select them all, and we go Library, Preview, and it's Build Standard Previews. And what it will then do, it will build these previews. These are standard previews. It will start building all these. And what that does, if I go back to my file, it builds, there we go, previews. So I'll move this over here so you can see this one here, previews. It builds this file. And this is the file that creates all the previews. Okay, and if you then build the next one, so let's come out of here. So if I go into Classic, Library, and Previews, build one-to-one previews. It will build those again because it's components that it's regenerating from your file. Okay, so you don't need to back up the preview because you can recreate the preview because you have the original raw file. Okay, did you understand that? Did I explain that? Any questions about that? No? So if you have a drive that fails and you need to go to a backup, all you do is you uncompress it, double click on the file, and at that point it will rerun Classic. You're opening your catalog again at that time that you created the backup. And then literally you just go select all if you've only got a few thousand images, generate the previews, generate the one-to-one previews if you so wish, and that's it. Away you go. You're back to where you were, but you're only at the point of where the backup was. So if you haven't done a backup for a week, all that work, all that importing, all that adjustments, develop settings, all the metadata that you've done to Classic, you've lost all that. You've got to do it all again, which is why I back up every time. Okay. Right, so that's backing up Classic. Now, backing up your files, your photograph files, the files that are on your SD card that you've imported and put them onto a hard drive. That is a totally separate action. It is nothing to do with Classic. However, what I've done is I've created a workflow that I can put my raw files that are really important to me. They're my best of my best of my best. Okay, so they're ones that perhaps are published in my book, or one of my books, or something like, or something in an exhibition. There's only a few. There's probably about 1,800 in there, and they go to my server. They're sitting on my server. So rather than sitting, and it could be an external hard drive, so a direct attached storage, or it could be a network attached storage, but I've actually got them on a 8 terabyte server sitting up a freeway, up a motorway towards Gloucester. And because I have a fast internet connection, it's just like sitting there looking at them on a drive next to me. But because they're on a remote drive, if I have a drive failure here, somebody else has backed them up. They're on a different hard drive, so I haven't lost them. So I took that principle a little bit further, and you can do it on Dropbox. So all you do with Dropbox, and the same applies with OneDrive, with Google Drive, is you go and find your folder. So we're going to go and add a folder, and we go and find it. There's Dropbox, and there's my folder that I created in Dropbox, and I've called it LRC Dropbox Images. So I add this folder to Lightroom Classic. Okay, so and if I show it to you outside of Lightroom, there's nothing in there. It's totally empty. This is the folder that's on my computer that syncs to my Dropbox in the cloud. So here it is here. It's in Classic. I've added it to Classic. So if I want to put this folder, put these 2 images, whatever I want to do, I just drag them, and now it will sync to the cloud, and it will sync to Dropbox, and there we go, they're gone to Dropbox. So they're now sitting on Dropbox's server in the cloud. And if I show you, go right click, show in Finder, there's the folder, there's the 2 images, and you see the green tick. They're sitting on Dropbox's computer. So I've backed up those images in the cloud in Classic. Okay, but they're counting towards my Dropbox storage. So this one is about I think a 20 gig account, so I've only get about 20 gigs worth of storage. But I'm keeping that, they're backing them up for me. They're going to create another copy for me in their archive system, how Dropbox works. But you could do it in OneDrive, you could do it in Google Drive, or any other service that you want. And they're within Classic. So I'm editing them, applying the edit, but the file is kept in the cloud. Okay. We used to be able to do that with Adobe Cloud, but they took that away February last year, I think it was, February 23, where you can only have libraries now. So that's a way that you can back up or take the worry of your drive going down and putting it more into a commercial environment. Okay, that makes sense to people? And also, if you've got Dropbox on your phone or your tablet, you can access those images on those devices. Now, controversial subject. There's been some discussions, naysayers, that Adobe are scanning all our images we put into the cloud. Now, they're saying they're scanning them if they're on Adobe stock, and they're paying you a small royalty to allow you to do that. But people are saying, well, if they're scanning them in Adobe stock, they could scan them in my cloud, my Adobe cloud. but not tell me. And they're using them for AI purposes. They're learning what is a cow, what is a street lamp, what is a car, what is a red car, what is a blue car, scanning all these images. And you could argue that case. Do you believe Adobe? I have no doubts in what Adobe says. But you'll always have some that will say, no, I don't want you to scan my images. Well, you can put them in your own OneDrive, you can put them in your own Dropbox, you can put them on your own server, and they're not being scanned. So you're having the same functionality, the same service as what Adobe's offering, but not with Adobe. Okay. So last thing, I'm going to show you how the two ways that I back up. So that's working files. I've got them on a remote server. That's one way I back up, and I keep my best and my best and my best. But I've also got a local copy, and I've also got a backup service that I use. So I'll talk about the backup service first. It's called Backblaze. I've been a customer of them for 12 years, and they do a personal plan. It's about £6, so $7 a month. You can buy a 3-year plan. It's really, really cheap. Throttling back. Throttling back is like standing on a hose pipe. The water doesn't come out the end. So a lot of service providers will throttle back your internet connection when they get busy. Backblaze does not do that. You can control the speed that you send and receive data to Backblaze, but you're in control. In the panel that they give you in the dashboard, you can say automatic or full speed, whatever your line supports. My line supports 100 meg upload and 1 gigabit download. It will talk to Backblaze at that speed. So I will send them stuff really quickly. But you might be in a household of lots of people that stream, or you might have a low speed, and you can set times. So you can say, only send stuff to Backblaze at night. And you could all do this within their dashboard. I pay roughly $180, so that's about £150 for 3 years, no throttle back, and unlimited storage. I've got over 30 terabytes of files in there because I'm on what they call the forever plan. If I delete an image my side on my computer, it doesn't delete it in theirs. So all my images for the whole of time, they go up on the internet, and once they're there, I've got them for life. And they charge me $7 a month for that. And I can access them in any way and shape and form that I like. I can download them all. I can get a hard drive sent to me if I wish. If I download them, it's free. So that's how I back up my images into the cloud. Everything that's on this computer on my main login, everything on this 96 terabyte Drobo, there's a couple more terabytes sitting there. They all just in the background, just upload to Backblaze. Okay, and I don't have to worry about any of that. Okay, if a drive fails, I've got systems here locally, but last resort is I just download the drive, put a new drive in, buy a new drive, whatever, and just rebuild it. Takes a couple of days usually, but I haven't lost the data. But what else do I do? Because I have downstairs, I've got a network attached storage. Jay, you use network attached storage, yeah? So network attached storage, you need some way of taking your files, whatever they are, we're not just talking about pictures, and copying them to somewhere else. Now, there's a Time Machine for Mac. There is probably something on PC as well, and there are other applications out there. Well, I use a bit of software which costs around about $20 a year, and it's called GoodSync. And the thing that I love about GoodSync, it's incremental, and you can create what they call jobs. So you can say, let's just open a Finder. You can say this drive here, this folder within this drive, I want to back up this folder or copy this folder, but I want to put it on this drive and put it in here. So that's what you do. You go and select your first drive and then select your source drive and your destination drive. And it will look at it, it will compare the source and the destination, and it will copy across the changes. Okay. Now, the great thing about this, it can be on a machine. So on this computer, this Mac computer, within 2 drives that are attached. It can be within a network. So a network attached storage, which is downstairs, or it can be on a server. So if I come to destination, I come down here, Google Drive. I can let it go to Google Drive. I can let it go to Apple Cloud. I can let it go to Dropbox. I can let it go to Amazon. I can let it go to Backblaze, OneDrive, and the list goes on and on and on. So I can take any folder, any drive, and send it to any location. Okay? Now, here's the great bit. Let me come out of here and explain it. By doing that, you can set it to do it automatically. So you can say, and this is each job. So each action you're asking it to do, you can say, take that folder and compare it to this destination. So this source to this destination. Do that every hour. And the things that have changed, it will copy across. You could do it every day. You can say, don't start till 12 o'clock, midnight, if you leave your machine on all night or whatever. So you can set the parameters what you want. Now, what I do with most of mine, I've got the same things copying, but I leave a different frequency, different schedule. So my network drives downstairs will do it every hour on the hour. So if I do something wrong, but make a mistake, for example, delete a file, I've got up to an hour to go and recover it, just drag it back manually from my attached drive downstairs. But then in the evening, I say, right, everything that's on that drive downstairs, send to OneDrive or send to Backblaze or send to. So I've now got a later schedule. So if I miss that first opportunity to recover that backup file, I've got another opportunity to do that. And this is what I love about GoodSync. You can create whatever formula you want, source, destination, and frequency. If you want to put a 3-hour time delay in doing a backup, you can put a 3-hour time delay. It's totally flexible. And if you want to copy the job, so you've got 2 different locations. So the source is the same, but the destination is different. So one is a live backup every minute, let's say, and it will just scan it and say that one file's changed, and it will copy that one file. But you could have, say, right, do the same source folder, but then back up every hour or every 6 hours or every 2 days or every 3 weeks, whatever you wish to do. So I use GoodSync. It's not expensive. It's around about, I'll say, $20. Well worth investing in. And you can select what you want wherever you want. And for the price of Amazon storage these days is 7 cents per gigabyte. I know it can rack up if you've got a lot on there, but for those really important files, you can create an account with Backblaze, put it in your OneDrive account, in your Dropbox account, in your web storage account. If you've got a web server, there are companies out there that do unlimited web hosting for $10 a month. Unlimited web hosting might not be the fastest server in the world, but you can just allow it and it'll just copy that drive and just put it up into your web hosting. And that's it. You've got a backup copy of all your files, all your photographs that are in Classic. Okay. So it's a little bit, you could say complicated, yes, but I take my images quite seriously. So I've got different levels of protection of hardware failure, software failure, and file corruption. So, for example, I've got a Drobo here. It's quite old now, but it's what they call Beyond RAID. And there are different companies out there that do, or Synology do them, and I think it's called RAID 5, where if a drive fails, that drive is actually copied across the other drives in the network, in the attached storage, in the box. So all you do is you turn the box off, you take the failed drive out, you put a new drive in, and 4, 5, 6 hours later, it rebuilds the data that you've lost on the drive from the other drives. And you can normally set up to 2-drive redundancy. What does that mean? So if you have 2 drives fail at the same time by mechanical failure, the data is stored across the rest of the drive. So that's mechanical drive failure compared to user error, that's file deletion, or corruption, file corruption. These are all the things. And it's always your best photograph, your most favorite photograph, whether it's of your family or children. It's always that photograph.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always that one that, oh, you don't mind if that folder gets still, those images, they get corrupted or you've deleted them by mistake. It's always that one. Okay. There are other programs out there. I've used GoodSync for a good 10 years. Really, really good. Really loved it. Because it's got total flexibility of what I want to back up and where I want to put it. Yeah, some of the software that you can buy, and some of them it's free. It'll only allow you to do one copy once on a local drive, or perhaps it'll only allow you to do 1,000 files at one time. This one is all automated and so on, so well worth it. And say the $20 or whatever it is a year. And you can actually get a version where you can put it on a USB drive and run it off a USB drive. So you can take it around to different machines and back up different machines on a manual action. So if you've got a laptop and you've got a couple of desktops, you can put the software on the USB drive, plug it into the USB port, run it from there, and it'll back up everything you need to do, then take it out, put it into your laptop, run it from there and do it that way. So it's done by per user rather than per device, per machine. Okay. Anyone have any questions about that? No? Anyone got any questions about backing up at all? No?
No, not to think about.
Yeah. Well, my parting words will be 3 copies. You should, as a policy, and it's please, I'm not telling you, this is experience telling you have at least 3 copies. You have your working copy, what you work on. You should have a local backup copy. Now that could be on an attached device, or it could be a network device. So in my case, I've got a 96 terabyte Drobo. And then I've got downstairs, I've got an 8-bay network attached network device. So everything that's here, my son's computer, my wife's computer, the laptops, the iPads, they all get backed up over the network, Wi-Fi and wired to my 8-bay drive downstairs. And then GoodSync takes those products and puts them into the cloud where I want them to put them. So I have my main data here, I have a local backup, and then the appropriate data that I want to back up goes into the cloud. Some of it will go to OneDrive, some of it will go to Google Drive, some of it will go to my server, some of it will go to Backblaze. the choices that I make is how valuable is that data to me? Because some data is more valuable than others. You know, you've probably heard the stories of people running into their burning houses to get their wedding album because it's got the negatives in there because they're irreplaceable. The passports, the credit card, the driving license, the pictures on the wall, they're replaceable, but the negatives aren't. So my important images, that I will make sure that I've got multiple backups in multiple different service providers. It doesn't cost a lot of money these days. You know, it might cost me £100 a year, $120 a year. Well, that's worth it to me. Okay.
Mhm.
So I hope that's helped you. Backing up your catalog and backing up your files, different ways of doing it. But do add your create a folder in, if you use Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive, create a folder, add that to Classic, drop the images in there. If they're really important to you, just drop the images in there and you'll be accessing them in that storage. So those services will be backing it up for you as well. Okay, so when they do their maintenance and all those type of things, you're being protected.
So just a quick question, Mark. If you're using Dropbox and you edit an image in Classic, does that edit also apply in Dropbox, or have you got to save it again?
So how Classic works is like a piece of tracing paper. You have because Classic is a non-destructive workflow. You have your original file, which is what's in Dropbox, and then Classic puts over a piece of tracing paper. And that is the line in the catalog. And when you write adjustments, so increase the brightness, put metadata, you're actually writing it to the catalog, which is the tracing paper. And the preview is the two sandwiched together. And this is how we do virtual copies, because it has a second piece of tracing paper. You take the first one away, puts another one on there, and it's another line in the database. And we can make a black and white copy now. The file that is in Dropbox or on your drive does not get touched. It's just sitting there with the tracing paper over the top. And you're looking, unless you're in the develop module, you're looking at a preview, and then you're looking at the tracing paper. And that tracing paper is on your catalog, which is local.
Okay.
So that's how it works in layman's terms. Until you export the file, it will take your IPTC data. It will take the raw file, if it's a raw file, or the original file and the adjustments that you've made that are in the catalog. It will take those three components, just three to start with, build you a new file, which is called a JPEG. Usually, you can do PNGs, you can do TIFFs, you can do same file format extension, you can do PSDs, whatever you want to do. But usually when we export it, we make it a JPEG and we resize it. We might add our watermark or something. And that file will go into a destination. It could be on your desktop. Okay. Could be a temporary file. You could be emailing it from within Classic. It will build the file into a temporary location. It'll email it from Classic and then delete the temporary file. But it takes that original file, takes the data that we've got in the database. So that's EXIF, IPTC, and edit adjustments, brings them all together, creates a new file, and sends that however you want to deal with it. So if you want to export it to Dropbox, it will be into Dropbox. But the original file is just a read file. Okay, and that's how Classic works. Lightroom works slightly differently because there is no catalog in Lightroom. It writes either as a sidecar file or into the header of the file, depending on how you have Lightroom set up. Okay.
that's also true for publishing services, like Export does the same thing.
Yep.
And there are cases where sometimes the tracing paper, the virtual copy, will not have been updated. Like if you've changed some of the metadata in the original file, that may not appear in the virtual file, but that updated metadata will be applied at export or publishing.
Yeah, exactly right. So publish servicing is exporting, but you're exporting it as who you're publishing it to wants it. So there is a final stage where in the export dialog, you're saying how you want it. In publishing services, who you're publishing to is telling Classic, with a few little exceptions, how they want it handed off to them. Okay. So
I had a little moment of panic on this issue because I had created a virtual copy, and then later I updated the metadata of the original file. And then when I was looking, I looked at the metadata of my virtual copy, and it was the old metadata. And I panicked thinking, oh, it hasn't gotten moved to the virtual copy. And then I said, well, maybe when it's published or exported, the newer metadata will get included, and it did. But that was a moment of confusion when the virtual copy's XF was different than the original copy.
So also you got to consider who you're publishing to. So their regeneration cycle may be every hour. So when you publish it, you've sent it, but for example, Flickr, and I'm only using that as a suggestion, I don't know what their policies, may only refresh their data every hour. And you'll find this in a lot of hosting packages. You update your PHP files or whatever and so on, and it's every 30 minutes they will update it, because it's a lot of processing power for their servers, etc. and so on. So, and normally if you're on a cheaper package, it's every hour, every 2 hours or whatever. But if you've got your own dedicated server, it's done. So there's lots of other factors involved. But anyway, well, I hope tonight's been of interest to you. And Monday, we are continuing on with editing. And we're going to look at color on Monday. And next week, I think next Wednesday is renaming. I think we're looking at next week. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So lovely to see you all.
Thanks.
And have a great week. Take care.
Okay.
Bye
Thank
for
you,
now.
Mark.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.